Back again, back again. I'm just looking at the binder that I mailed to strategist Linda Douglas and then Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi from California. This is before Joe Biden was selected to be vice president. When Joe Biden was selected by Barack Obama, I was very relieved. I'll tell you what, I saw Joe Biden speak right here in Allentown right on Hamilton Street here downtown. I could never speak that long. I said, man, can he talk and talk? And I was just, I couldn't believe how, I mean, he really, that guy is something. I'll tell you what, I want to give it up for Joe Biden. I mean, I'll tell you what, and Barack Obama, these guys, I'll tell you what, they deserve to be where they're at. And I'm happy that they're there. I mean, just think what they do every day getting up like that. I mean, for me to put this tie on was rough. You know, I'm not a suit and tie guy, you know. I had to take my jacket off. These guys, man, talk about dedicated. Are you kidding me? Oh, God. Anyway, so I guess you think I was nuts for asking to be vice president, huh? Hey, maybe I'm a little crazy. At least I admit it. So anyway, this is what I actually sent George Bush a check for $100. See, here's the thing. Let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to move the camera here. I'm going to put this here. All right, this goes here. And I just want to make sure I get this. Here we go. That's what I'm looking for now. Does anybody remember the 2000 election? How could you forget the 2000 election? I voted for Gore Lieberman. Now this is when I really started understanding how presidential politics works. As you remember, in 1960, John F. Kennedy knocked off Nixon. All right. President Kennedy was murdered, and then Johnson took over. So that was 2 terms of a Democratic rule. Kennedy, Johnson. That was 8 years. Then comes Richard Nixon. Nixon, Tricky Dick Nixon, Richard Nixon would have won. He would have done 8 years too. However, they had the Watergate thing there, and then Ford took. I'll tell you the truth, I really liked Gerald Ford. I thought he was an awesome president. So you have this cycle, this continuous cycle. I was going to write it up here on the board, but I don't have to. I think I'm doing pretty good articulating it right here on the floor. You get Jimmy Carter in there for 4. Then you get Ronald Reagan. Now just look at this now. Ronald Reagan does 2 terms. See, there's never a continuous Republican. There's always a cycle, a back and forth switch. So Ronnie does 2 terms, President Reagan. Okay, then you get George H.W. Bush. To me, that was like a flukish kind of thing. I thought maybe a Democrat would get in there, but so that's 3 terms Republican in a row. Then you get William Jefferson Clinton, Mr. Clinton, President Clinton. That's 2. Now, I should have known, I should have realized that we're not going to get another Dem in there. I should have known it, but I didn't. That's when I got wise to this process. You might think I'm backwards on this, that it's the voting that matters, but to me there's a switch. It's like we get a little bit of this, but then in accordance to be fair, then we got to switch back. So I voted for Gore Lieberman. I just want to double check the camera, make sure I got that on there. Hold on. Okay, it's on. Here's what really ticked me off. It really is ticked me off. They said it was so close. I was watching, I get all this stuff right here from where I live in my house on television. I'm just like probably everybody else. I don't live in Washington. I get everything on TV. I switch back and forth between the channels. This is back when Tim Russert was alive. Remember Tim Russert was alive? I think I was even watching Tim Russert. And they had all this back and forth stuff. The announcers, I'll never forget this. I had to make this because this is what really, I'm going to tell you, it ticked me off. It really, I would say it almost enraged me. Believe it wouldn't even touch anybody else that way, but it touched me. Here's what I saw. Here's what I saw. Oh, it's close. It's close. In fact, I have something written down. Oh, if only I could find it. Let's see. I had it written down here. Let's see if I could find it. Every time you need to find something, you can never find it, right? Here, let's see. What's this? Might be in here. I don't believe hold on. This is crazy. I can't find it. I need to find it. All right. Hold on, this is important. All right, let me sit here. Changing the course of history wasn't a difficult thing to do. Of course, though, the timing had to be right. So I'll start with why I picked the 2008 presidential election to do it. It was no secret that a prior presidential election, the one in 2000, had its flaws. I couldn't help but to get emotionally involved with it. The experience was similar to when my uncle took me to the horse tracks years ago. I would bet on a win, place, or show. Sometimes I would play an exacta or a quinella, or even the daily double. I played to win. It was always exciting when the horses were running full bore down the track. It was more exciting when my horse came in first, second, or third, or in first and second, or if I played a trifecta, first, second, and third. A lifelong Democrat, I voted for Al Gore and Joe Lieberman, and against George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. The 2000 presidential election came down to the wire. It was a photo finish. I'll never forget watching the television on election night. There was something else I'll never forget either. The commentators seemed to be genuinely uncertain as to who would win the presidency. I remember seeing Al Gore and George Bush's name up on a plexiglass scoreboard. Suddenly what looked to be an incandescent light bulb started flashing behind the translucent plastic which denoted George Bush's name. This is what I saw. Oh my goodness. I mean, come on. This is what I saw. This is how they did it. This means George Bush won the presidency. Wow, I wonder who's flipping the switch. Look, George Bush won. Look at that. Today they have more modern things, Here's the thing. What happens between where I'm sitting and that scoreboard and that plexiglass? I mean, that's not the way to tell a president won. That's why I had to duplicate that. What happens? Vladimir Putin said, the American electoral system, that's secretive. It's done by the Electoral College. The people don't pick. It's secretive. This is the part that got me about that 2000 election. Let me continue. Unlike those exciting thoroughbred races I witnessed years ago, this outcome seemed terribly odd. First, I couldn't actually see the winner cross the finish line. There was no exertion across the wire. It was just that cheap-looking, incandescent light bulb that indicated a win. Something seemed wrong, very wrong. At the horse tracks in the late 70s, I remember my uncle saying things that seemed to be analogous to this election's outcome. He would indicate to me that perhaps foul play was about to occur by saying they might try and stiff him. This meant that the jockey riding a winning horse would give an imperceptible pull or a tug at the reins or maybe a slight squeeze at the stirrups. The horse was then supposed to fall back and inevitably wind up in a lesser final position. No one could ever prove that any foul play occurred. Nevertheless, these were the things that made me wonder about the integrity of horse track gambling and also about the questionable integrity of the 2000 presidential election. If one wants to find fault as why Barack Obama became our president in 2008, all they have to do is look at the election in 2000. It was the 2000 election that motivated me to install an entirely different prototype president. And that prototype is Barack Obama. Thank you very much. It's only reading. It's only words. Now, here, this is from Jim Webb. What's wrong with our prisons? Remember I mentioned him earlier on the clip, on the segment before? All right. I guess I was enunciating that a little too emphatically, wasn't I? Put that there. All right. Now, like I said, Barack Obama was my idea since 1991 when I went to Kutztown University, and I noticed that the presidents all pretty much were the same. Now, the crux of my argument was listed here. This is why Barack Obama had to run, because let's see, I just want to go back here. Now I did insert race into this as part of the quotient to get Barack Obama to run. That was part of it. Matter of fact, here, let me read this anecdotal story. Last week, I asked a black certified nursing assistant at a local nursing home, do you think there will ever be a black president in our country? The CNA, I'm going to call her Mrs. Smith, turned halfway around and quizzically remarked, yeah, right. She had made a comical sound when she replied to me. A few days later, I asked her exactly what she meant by her remark. She said that a black president in the United States would be assassinated. That's what she told me. She continued, the same kind of people who shot former President Kennedy are the type of people who would not stand for an African American president. Yes, Mr. President Bush, I continue. This was from President Bush that I wrote this. This is simple observations. This is disheartening to hear, President Bush. Yet this is the way countless of thousands of our citizens feel. Then in contrast to the thoughts of Mrs. Smith are your words when you boast about how great and free the American people are. I know that you are proud to be our president, President Bush, but what segment of our society are you boasting about when you say that we are a great and free people? Mrs. Smith is realistic. Because of the terrible way that African Americans and other non-whites were historically treated in this country by the dominant and sometimes abusive white culture, Mrs. Ward knows that at this time in our history, a non-white president would not be allowed to enter our historically all-white executive institution. See, I wanted to really push it upon them. I wanted to push it hard, and I also wanted to tell the truth. I wanted to give it from words of people, not just me.
And not everybody believes this way, not everybody thinks this way, but some people do. That's what is important. That's why Barack Obama had to run. Let's see. Even my parents. I asked them. My parents do not think that key electoral decision makers of the United States, and this was back in 2004, are willing to accept a black president even if he were qualified. They grew up during a time when overt acts of racism, bigotry, discrimination, terrorism happened in many areas of our country. That's right. The 60s were full of terrorists blowing up buildings and, killing innocent children down in Birmingham. This wasn't long ago. 60, 70, 80, 90, 2000. This was 50 years ago. That's not that long ago. I'm 50 years old. You're looking at a guy, when I was just a little baby, this stuff was going on. Of course, mostly because I am a Navy veteran, I must disagree with my parents. Black people have shed much of their blood so that you and I can be free. In Vietnam, most of them did not dodge the draft like many of our wealthy, privileged white teens did. Most black people did what they were told, and that goes for black military veterans. They were used to taking orders. My uncle, who was a Marine for 2 years during the Vietnam War, told me many true stories about his veteran peers. He also said that he remembers when a lot of his white school peers and others around this is my uncle speaking, he's no longer here, same age group, purposely, this is some of the people that he knew, they purposefully impregnated and eventually married the most available women just to avoid the military draft. This is true. This is what he told me. I believe it. Today, my uncle still uses the term draft dodger. He's no longer here. He died 2 years ago. When he tells me of the cowards who went to college just to avoid the draft. Some people might say they're not cowards. Don't be so sure. As far as I know, most black people in the 60s didn't have the privilege of avoiding military conscription. Our Secretary of State, Colin Powell, a product of that era, he turned out to be a loyal and faithful public servant, and he must be commended. I also mailed Secretary Colin Powell a copy of Civil Observations. See, I wanted to get as many people behind the candidate who I didn't know. I didn't know it was going to be Barack Obama until that 2004 convention, 3 months after Barack Obama got this book. He also got it. I read that to you. And in here I put, our inner cities have been falling apart for decades. Watts, Harlem, East St. Louis, Kensington. Black people lives in these areas. Nobody cares. Why? Hopelessness, despair, bigotry, racism, discrimination, ostracization. Solution. They need to get in the education system. We hear this stuff all the time, families, but just because, you know what, there's so much on this in college. I'm not saying I'm the expert. What I'm saying is you can learn about this in college. I don't want to get on a soapbox here. I'm just telling you that I recruited Barack Obama. And some of the reasons why. Okay. I knew since we were in Iraq that George Bush was going to win a second term. I knew it for sure. When I sent him this book, I sent it before the November 2nd election of 2004. Long before, in July or August. I changed to a Republican only because I knew to get what I wanted, I had to become one of them. I didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. I figured, what the heck, it's not going to kill me. So then I voted for George W. Bush. I wanted to vote for John Kerry. But I knew, because of the way the administration was handling things, I knew George Bush would get in there anyway. It didn't matter if I voted for Kerry or George Bush was going to win, because war was going on, and we weren't going to cut the administration in half and have Kerry in there. It wasn't going to happen. So I sided with George Bush 100%, blah, 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 and I sent him this book. And the long-term objective was to get the dark-skinned president elected. I didn't know if it was going to happen in 2008. I didn't know when, but when I saw Barack Obama in 2004, I knew. I wrote, you know what, Barack Obama does not believe in predestination. I tend to believe in predestination. This is one of the reasons. I was destined to change back to the Democratic Party on September 11, 2006 on Patriot Day. I did not plan this. I knew I was going to switch back, but when I went, I didn't realize it was September 11th till I got to the Lehigh County, voter's office. I planned it not for that specific day. It just happened. I don't believe this is a coincidence either. I believe, I'm kind of like what Patton believed. I believe I believe that some things are just made for everybody. I don't know if some people see that in your own lives, but I do. Predestination. I'm a proponent of it. Unlike Barack Obama, he doesn't believe in it. I guess he believes in that. Oh yeah, well we do everything. We're when we work, we do this and we do that. I don't believe, he doesn't believe, you'll have to talk to him about that one. This specific day was planned by someone else. Now, I'm going to get back, I'm going to go right to I'm going to say it right now. This is the Holy Bible. Everything I'm saying, to the best of my knowledge, I do attest and affirm that I am telling the absolute truth, so help me God. The Holy Bible, so. The King James Version for anybody that wants to. So here's my card that I changed back to Democrat on it says September 12th, but that was the day that they put on the card. But I was actually at the office on September 11th. So that's that. Okay. Now, let me see. So and I also included this. See. Here's another reason about Barack Obama, because I just want to make sure that's working. As you can see here, Mr. President Bush, Caucasians will soon be the new minority in this country. Native Americans lost this land to the Europeans. Now it's the European Caucasian descendants who will lose this land to Hispanics, blacks, Asians, etc. Whites will continue to control the monetary capital, hence they will continue to control the presidency and the power. See? Now, I put this in there as a kicker, see, you got to do this. It's like reverse psychology, you know what I'm saying? It would certainly be more democratic, more equal, and more fair to have an erudite, qualified, capable, and committed black, Hispanic, or other non-white president rather than to have another white president who is erudite, qualified, capable, committed, and privileged. And then basically here you have the American Indian in America, 100%. Then you have white non-Hispanic at 70. This is in 1500. This is in 1790. And you have Native Americans at 13%. African Americans, once they arrived here, were always 16, 12%, 10%, and 14, and about 12%, about 15% of the population. And then in 1880, the source of this book is, this is a Bureau of Census, 1975 to 2000, the census statistic thing, public information. All my stuff here is public information. It's nothing copyrighted or anything like that. It's all public information. I purchased it, so it's mine. I bought it. So African American, and as you can see, the white. Another reason to logically pick Barack Obama. our demographics are changing. It's that simple. So, and to mention all the other things I said. So white, Hispanic, and here in 2050 projected, you have Hispanics with 23% of the population, and the white non-Hispanic at 53, which is still pretty. That's why. Well, anyway, let me just continue on with this. And I quoted Charles Dickens, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." Anyway, here's what I said to President Bush. I said, take the litmus test. I really wanted to emphasize this. I really wanted to get this done. Take the United States litmus test to find out, and John F. Fitzgerald Kennedy referred to this one time. He said almost the same exact thing I found out later. Take the United States litmus test to find out if you would be at a clear disadvantage if you were black instead of white. Ask yourself this question. Knowing what I know, if I were to be born tomorrow, and if I had to make a choice whether I should be black or white, what skin color would I choose? Circle 1, black or white? Not sure, go to the next page. Circle 1, black or white. If you need help deciding, remember these things. The large masses of blacks relegated to our decrepit inner cities. Here, let me get the camera. Let me see. Here it is. The large okay. 43 presidents, each one white. The poverty of Haiti, the costly and bloody Civil War, the wealth of the white suburbs, slavery, terrorist organization within the United States, the KKK, the Invisible Empire. Now they were sued out of existence, but they don't exist anymore as far as I know. And they were a terrorist organization. Remember segregation. Remember the tumultuous 60s civil rights movement. Remember the hatred. Remember the terror and fear. King and Lincoln assassinated. John and Robert Kennedy. Remember now the Cold War of today's racism. White or black, choose. Here's what I said to Mr. President. Just think, Mr. President Bush, if you had been, and this is true, this is absolutely true, if you had been born a black man in this country, you would not be president now. It's true until Barack Obama. See? Now, let's see. And then I got into the cemetery. Now, here's another thing that I really wanted to do. I always wanted to do this. You know how you go to a store and you see postcards? And you always see the Liberty Bell, Ben Franklin. In fact, here's one I had here. This is Philadelphia. This is the great pinnacle of a church in Philadelphia, the Declaration of Independence. But then I said, you know what? Why don't we see other parts of what it looks like? And why don't we sing, as you observe, the two cards sing along. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. Did God bless all of America? And then I put this. I took this building with the broken windows and the glass, and I note who were the people that lived in the blocks around this building. And I looked, and then I wrote, let's see. This is Philadelphia. This building is a monument to all the African Americans who got little recognition during this country's historic growth. The broken windows represent broken dreams. This was one of my primary persuaders to ensure that we get a dark-skinned president, Barack Obama. And then I made a bunch of these. And, I just said to myself, when you see stuff on the news stations and things like that, they don't want to show you this stuff because it's ugly. It's not what they want America to be represented by. They just want all the good stuff to be shown. Don't show the bad stuff. You can see why it was I that recruited Barack Obama, right? At Kutztown in college, I wrote this on my resume. And the guy, I forgot who he was. He was a counselor. He kind of chuckled. He said, listen to this. I have two of them. Career interest, working with a governmental or quasi-governmental body to establish, implement, and or administer by acting as a liaison, a director, or a counselor, policy issues regarding urban, domestic, or social concerns, such as the restoration of blighted areas, including building renewal and redevelopment, and advocating a destigmatization policy which states that racial and ethnic minorities are not the cause of urban, domestic, and social problems. You can see why it was I that recruited Barack Obama. See, here's the thing. Let me see if I can find this. Here I am looking again. Always looking. Okay. Here's the thing. Let me tell you something. Barack Obama's movement, you've heard of his movement, started from the ground up. I have something to tell you. This is where Barack Obama's movement started. This is the ground I am standing on. I started the movement. Here's the second one. This is where the guy laughed at me. Working with the government, I already read this, but please, he tells me, this really doesn't tell me anything. He was criticizing me. What do you want to do? I didn't know I was going to recruit Barack Obama. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't know it back then. See, if I wouldn't have went to Kutztown University, I wouldn't have studied this, which leads me to this. Uno momento. Let me move this here a little bit. Here's the crux of my argument to recruit Barack Obama. It's right here. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. This is it. La, 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 la. Okay. All right. And lastly, in order for you and the rest of our future presidents to keep advocating how fair, free, and democratic we are, we will have to get an executive facelift, I said to President Bush. See, here's all the presidents. You can see they're all pretty much the same. They all look the same. And then, here's what I wrote. Since the presidency is a homogeneous institution and our government is a democracy, our presidency should reflect that of a democracy and not that of an all-white Anglo institution. Now you see, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, right there, that's John Fitzgerald Kennedy. See, he was a non-traditional president. You remember him. He was in the war, remember? He got his PT boat, or the ship he was on, got crushed by a Japanese destroyer, a cruiser, a destroyer, a big ship. And he helped save his fellow comrades. And then, of course, down here you have this gentleman who looks totally different than all the rest. See, that was the whole impetus behind this. And here you have the list of presidents with the names, and they all look pretty much the same. Every name ends in a consonant except for Fillmore and Pierce and stuff. The focus of my argument was a thing called institutional discrimination. I learned this when I went to Kutztown University. Institutional discrimination, which was taught by a university, is a denial of opportunities and equal rights to individuals or groups resulting from the normal operations of a society, resulting from the normal operations of a society. What was normally happening is that we were electing all these guys that were the same. It took someone atypical, I was going to say abnormal, but okay. You can call me abnormal. I have thick skin. I could even run for presidency. See how thick? This is what it took. And then, see, of course I had to, see that I couldn't have done this if it wasn't for the, see, I joined the military for myself, but what I got out of the military, I got out the common good. I got what was good for the entire country. United States Sixth Fleet, power for peace, the power of persuasion, a rhetorical speech among committed and dedicated armed forces personnel, professionals, Reagan's Navy, Layman's Navy, your Navy, my Navy. This was in Egypt, Africa in 1983-84. This is me speaking. See, I'm sitting there in Egypt. That's me. This is a gentleman I know, and that's another gentleman. This man was a Navy SEAL, I believe, and this was a man that was in the engineering department on the USS Fort Snelling. Our country was built on bold new approaches. It was not built on cowardice and adamance to change, I wrote. And then I had to put this in. I figured this would really get him. President Bush, this is Ronald Reagan from January 3rd, 1984. Tear down this wall of racism, bigotry, and discrimination in our country, he's thinking. Let's elect a qualified, adept, and capable non-white president. We need your support and the support of all the white members of the Electoral College. And there's me speaking it. And there's Ronald Reagan thinking it. That's not actually what happened, but that's just my little cartoon here. That's fictional too, of course. Most of my stuff is fictional, but some of it isn't. It's 50-50. You figure out the truth. Institutional, here's one from Paul W. Taylor, quote, institutional injustice demands institutional compensation. One more thing, let's see. Victor Hugo, I have him somewhere. Here it is. Another reason I did this. According to the words of the great writer and statesman Victor Hugo, there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. And Barack Obama's time has come. It was my idea. Yes. 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 Okay, where am I going with this? Let's go. I can't walk too far because I have this thing plugged in. Hold on. Let me just Okay, so my life's progression that led to this. I was born a quiet observer. According to my mother, I rarely cried at all when I was young. Only under extreme circumstances, like when I crushed my hands in a car door, the 56 Oldsmobile, I closed the car door in my hand. It was an accident. And when that teacher yanked on my hair, stuff like that. I was not college bound for several reasons at that time. Enlisted in the U.S. Navy to better myself at age 19. It's not just a job, it's an adventure. That was the motto back then. 5 years later, let's see. 5 years later, I was a little homesick and I wanted to rejoin my uncle and do some stuff that I thought I would like. So I became a farrier. I went to Martinsville Eastern School of Farriery, which was an interesting endeavor. I saved, when I was in the service, I grossed about $50,000. I saved half of that, so I came out of the Navy after 5 years with $25,000 in my pocket. I was the first in my immediate family to attend college for 5 consecutive years. This led me to a historic first, to recruiting Barack Obama to be our 44th President of the United States of America. And, let me see. I'm going to see if I can pull this over here a little bit. My battery ran out, so I have to see if I can get that. Yeah, there's my uncle up there. He was in the United States Marines. For 2 years served during the Vietnam conflict. Ronald Stephen Chimino. There he is, Lance Corporal Ronald S. Stephen Cimino. Duty, honor, country. They gave him one of the best, the
the American Legion gave him the best funeral at the graveside service that I've ever seen in my entire life. You would have think he was General Patton. I really commend. I sent them a check for $75 or $50, I believe it was. There's the United States Navy, power for peace. I'd rather have it the other way around, peace for power or just peace. But, you know, I guess that's why we're the greatest country on the earth. So, and I have a psalm down there that says, "The Lord will preserve him and keep him alive, and he shall be blessed upon the earth, and thou wilt not deliver him unto the will of his enemies." Psalm. And over here I have my most honored, cherished, and prestigious decoration was being able to return home alive and well. And down there is my my certificate. And without that, Barack Obama would have never run for president of the United States. It was thanks to a great college education at Kutztown University that we should all thank. I couldn't have done this. And you see people say this all the time. It's not one person that's responsible. My parents helped me. President Obama's parents helped me. It's the people around you. You surround yourself with people that are going to help you through life. I cannot take all the credit for doing this. I mean, believe me, I was supported along the way. And I'm still, I work with people all the time that I take care of them and they take care of me. And I'm very grateful to be living in the United States of America. It's the only place I know. I'm sure I could have been born in Germany and love Germany, but this is my home, and I'm not going to move any. This is where I'm going to be forever. So, as far as I know. So, what is it? What else does that say over there? Let me see. I'm sure I forgot a lot. Oh yeah, Peter Falk also had a master's degree in public administration. And in conclusion, here we go. I just have a couple more things. This won't take long. Let me just, hold on. I know this is all over the place. Assimilation. Speaking of which, okay, so you know, there's the thing I'm going to talk about. It's called hyper-assimilation or over-assimilation. You know how, remember John Wayne? His name was actually Marion Morrison. And you know, Michael Landon, the actor, he starred on Bonanza. His actual name was Eugene Orowitz. My name's Mark Allegranzi. I'm not going to change my name for anybody. I consider that over-assimilation. So, I'm going to write this up here. Over-assimilation. I believe in assimilating, but I believe in assimilating. Let's see. But I don't believe in changing my name that my parents gave to me. That's why I really dig Barack Obama, you know. And I dig Mark Allegranzi because I'm not going to change my name to be something that we think is American. Being American doesn't mean you have to have a name like Richard Jones or Robert Wilson. That's not American. No. Being American is somebody that stands up for what they believe in. Somebody that serves their country and serves other people. That's what being American is. I mean, you can have your own definition. That's fine by me. But I'm telling you, Mark Allegranzi is just as American as anybody else walking down the street. And that's the way it is. And I'll tell you that, I'm telling that right to your face. I'm looking right at you, and you're looking right at me. I'm an American. I was born here. I'm a Native American. That's the way it is. So, if you want to change your name to Jim Wayne or Mr. Newton or whatever, go ahead. Not me, man. Not me. Okay, I have one more thing to say. What was it? Okay, hold on. Let's see. Now, it was think pink. Oh, here it is. All right. Okay, let me just put this over here. Hold on. La 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 la. Okay, here is. See if I can get this. Oh man, this thing is all over the place. There we go. Oh, here's where my voting. Here's where I voted, where we vote, and okay, this is the building that we vote in. Usually there's hardly anybody there. When President Bush in 2004 after 9/11, you had some people come out to here, you know, in the grass and stuff like that. There's a tree line in the back. But when I recruited Barack Obama and he ran for president, the line went all the way down to here. And there's a street. This is about 80 yards. And I would say it was about 5 people thick until about here. But nobody ever saw this many. I never saw this many people that long, ever at that voting place. And let's see. Oh, this is the school that I went to in kindergarten, first, second grade. And let's see. Yeah, this was me in first grade, actually. I fared fairly well after that teacher yanked on my hair. But the scars, they always remain. But that's okay. That's all right. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Okay, so let me see. Oh, and also, this is my dad. Where he is in the voting place where we vote. It's a church. He has a walker. And if you remember Barack Obama's campaign, there were people in wheelchairs and there were all kind of people that never ever came out to vote. My father never ever voted. He never cared. He was apathetic like many people. I'll tell you the truth. He said he liked Barack Obama because you know what, Barack Obama had that FDR that he used the pulpit like, you know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt did. And my father said, geez, I shouldn't say this. He said, I don't want to see a woman win, you know. He'll tell you straight out. He didn't want to see it. I knew Hillary Clinton wasn't going to win anyway because I already sent all these notebooks out. And what happened was when them notebooks got to Jesse Jackson and Ogletree, that started a fire. That started an earthquake, you know. And I knew Hillary Clinton didn't have a chance. I knew it all along. You know, it was simple for me. But anyway, so my dad's from the old country, you know, the man, you know, but he still likes all kind of people. He doesn't care what you are, who you are. That's the great thing about my father. He's a great guy. So here he is this is in 2000. He did vote in 2004 in that crowd of people that I just said. He was there. That's the first time he voted was for Barack Obama. I think it was the 2004 primary against, I think it was Hillary Clinton. But he did vote in the election for Barack Obama, whether it was the general, but that was the first time. And this is him in 2006. I took a picture of him coming out of the same voting place. This is him in 2006. So there was one more thing I wanted to say. What was it? Jeez. In conclusion, right. I'm sure I forgot a lot of stuff.
But the last thing I want to say is this. Let me see if I can get this camera right where I want it. Boy, this is going to be rough. Jeez whiz. Too tough. Too tough. La 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 la. Oh, jeez. Damn. It's still rolling. I can't believe it. It must have charged the battery up. Doesn't mean I can't plug it in yet. Okay. Where are we? Let me see. Man, this is tough. Where's my editor at? Editor at large. Okay. Son of a gun. This is...